You're listening to Two Beers Until Phronesis, a philosophy podcast by students and graduates. Whether you've never heard of philosophy or have a philosophy PhD, we hope you enjoy these conversations as we discuss some of life's big questions over a few beers. Enjoy!
Hello! You messaged me last night, you wanted to talk about Stoicism, so we're here this morning talking about Stoicism.
Yeah, it's like, it was pretty extreme. I was just like, I don't know, I read, Meditations like 2 years ago, and I was like, fuck, this is good, I like this. This is like, because I sort of read a bit of Camus, and as far as I can see, Camus is like an excuse for, I think Nine talks about it just being an excuse for hedonism, and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much true. And the Myth of Sisyphus is kind of just like an interpretation of Stoicism. And then I think in that there was some links to Marcus Aurelius. I started reading Meditations, and then I reread through it every now and again, and that and a bit of Seneca as well. And I just read it last night and was like, shit, we need to talk about this. This is still holding up so much.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. I was like, okay, I need to brush up on this because we touched on the Myth of Sisyphus at uni and a couple of other people, and I think it's similar to a lot of the stuff Aristotle says. I'm not sure if he's a Stoic.
I think he was, because I think there's a branch off which is Aristotelian Stoicism, and he's on my to-read list.
Yeah, but this Stoicism stuff is creating a lot of buzz right now, which is the other area that I've come across here, which is humanism.
Yeah.
Because obviously humanism is this positive, naturalist philosophy, approach to life, but beyond that it's kind of a little bit ill-defined. If you push a lot of sort of humanist normies, maybe the people in London have got everything sorted, and I'm doing an online course
in the cultural capital.
Yeah, but then a lot of other humanists, you push them to be like, okay, so what is a humanist approach to ethics? And beyond sort of general maxims, they can't really give you much in the way of existentialism, which I think is fine, because I think humanism has got a good start, but then in terms of the specifics, there's not much. But one of the things that's creating a lot of buzz is these ideas of like happiness courses, and how can I be happy? How can I be content? What is meaning?
And is that that's the thing I like about the Stoics, is like, is that the main thing of life?
Yeah, and these happiness courses have this little this sort of seeding the way for Stoicism, because Stoicism is something that, you know, because Stoicism isn't about being happy. So people go to these courses, oh yeah, I'm a humanist. How can I be a happy humanist?
I want to be grinning. And it's like, well, that's a temporary state. If you want that, you just need to be on some fucking psychoactives that constantly feed serotonin into your brain.
Yeah,
you're not going to be like that. And this is what I like about Stoics, is they go, okay, so most of life is going to be either some drudgery, or it's not going to be like awesome all the time. It's not going to be like perfect happiness. You're not going to be able to, even Buddhism talks about, like, you know, you're not just going to be sat there like levitating and just like floating and going, in perfect happiness.
Yeah.
It's not what they mean by happiness or meaning or contentment.
So it's this idea of, was it eudaimonia?
Oh yeah, shit. I haven't heard of this one. This is what I thought I'd talk about it, because it's like, my only exposure to it is these two books, so we get to get another point of view, and so also some anti-Stoic stuff as well.
Yeah, I don't really know much in the way of anti-Stoicism. I came up with a few points, because I listened to the Partially Examined Life podcast, which is like really good. If you can't tell, our podcast is basically trying to be that at some point.
I listened to it, and like the way they introduced it was literally the way you introduced the show. And I was like, I've got it. I got what you want about there.
There we go. Yeah, but no, eudaimonia, this idea of fulfillment, basically. The life with eudaimonia is basically the life of sitting on your deathbed and going, yeah, that was a good life.
And that's what I really like about what was about Seneca, is it talks a lot about death, and the fact that at any point you should just be like, it's obviously paraphrasing a lot, you should be like, yeah, I'm done. And there was one really good talk about how life is short, and it's like how people put off all of the things they do. He was talking about Augustus, and saying like, oh, one day I'll be free, one day I'll be rid of this. And it's like that idea of the old man who's saving up for his pension, and he's going, one day I'm going to retire to this Caribbean island and drink mojitos. And it's like, that's never going to happen. And if you spend your entire life saving up or thinking about that as the end point, then you're going to get to that age and get, as most people do now, I think, regretful and go, oh shit, I've wasted my entire life. I haven't actually lived.
And so you have to enjoy the moment.
Yeah, there's a time for quotes because I've got many written down.
Well, we should probably
Shit.
you lost it.
No, I got.
Can you read your own writing?
No, I can't read my own fucking writing. It's like generally actually impossible.
I think we should probably contextually frame all Stoicism like. So we're talking about when we're talking about Seneca and Aurelius, we're talking about Roman Stoicism, which itself was continued on from Greek Stoicism.
And it's, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and
Zeno, it sort of descends from Zeno and everything like that, which is not the god of
Scientology. Zeno,
yeah.
And then so there's been a little bit of a revival, I think, recently in virtue ethics, and even in like kind of business formats and stuff, like people doing like courses.
I think definitely, and like it's almost got to the point of like over the top now, when you see like all these videos on YouTube and like, all you got to do is wake up and work and have a dream and work, and it's like, well, that's not like really practical. That's just you saying the word work and thinking it's motivation. It's like, just do, think, do, grow, achieve, survive, kill, maim, burn, and it's like, it's not really Stoicism. I saw a guy. I might have talked about this before because it's the funniest thing I've ever heard. It's like that amazing Nietzsche quote. It's like, if you have like a big enough why, you can survive any how. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. That's like, if you're, and this is like sort of Stoic. It's like, if the reason for you doing it is big enough, you can get through anything. And I saw a guy who put it like, your why has to be bigger than the other man's punch. I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ. It's like taking that to a new level.
There's this dichotomy between believing and knowing. Yeah. Which I've found from my little bit of reading. So the myth of Sisyphus is this poor cunt who has to push a rock up a hill for eternity.
Yeah. The entire myth of Sisyphus, he actually does some really jady stuff before this happens. Like he kills...
So it's a punishment from the gods.
Yeah, he kills the god of death. He tricks the god of death into a cupboard, handcuffs them. He manages to live as a king, or like some sort of... It's just like... what he does is like, it's kind of worth being punished. Right. And it's like he outsmarts the gods for so long, and then that's like the punishment for his hubris and his like actual achievement of doing it.
Right, yeah.
Because I think he gets sent to hell, then he manages to get himself out of hell, and then he gets punished again.
Right.
Which is pretty fucking legit.
So his punishment is to push a rock up a hill for eternity.
Yeah.
And I think that doesn't he get to the top and roll back down? He has to go back down again.
Yeah, as soon as he gets to the top, or as soon as he's about to get to the top, it rolls back down. And
so the whole idea with Stoicism is that Sisyphus has no control over his situation, but what he does have control over is the reaction he has to that situation. So the only way he can kind of get back at the people that have punished him is to actually enjoy his punishment.
And it's also, I think it's about you can choose your mindset in the midst of a punishment, which is all about the sort of Stoic idea. It's like you can't control everything. It's not like solapism. It's not like the world exists only in your head, but it's like the one thing you can control is your reaction to that situation.
Yeah.
And having control of that, and it's like, I think Camus talks about, it's like, you should imagine Sisyphus happy as he walks down. And he's just accepted his lot in life, and he's accepted this is his stone to roll. And he goes, oh, okay, I'm now doing the purpose that I'm a part of.
So this is probably a good time to say that this sounds a lot like Buddhism.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds a lot like the mindfulness stuff we talked about in the mindfulness podcast. Is there any difference? Do we think this is just a Western version?
I think they really do complement each other. So I started getting a lot more into meditation. I found it's helped be like less reactive and sort of emotionally detached a little bit more. And that's not to be like, super cold, like fucking Benedict Cumberbatch, weird android, but it's like just to recognise when emotions are coming up and go, okay, I don't have to feel this way. And it's like, Marcus Aurelius has got awesome quote where it's like, all is as thinking makes it so. And it's like the way you think in your head is usually the cause of it. And there's another Seneca one, which is, I think we don't suffer so much as we suffer in our mind. And it's this idea of like, if there's a bad situation, or like say if you've got like a speech or something.
Yeah, we focus on the negative.
Or you just think about the negative all the time.
Yeah.
And you go like, what if they hate speech? What if they throw stones at me? What if there's an IED in there? What if I shit my pants on stage? And it's like, you create all of these like negative things. And then when you actually go through it, when you pay attention to the present that you're in, you don't actually have any of that. You're creating the rest.
Do you think that's a bit too much to expect of people? And do you not think that there's a point to to worry and anxiety, and even depression. Like, I think great artists have come out with great stuff through depression, only in a depressive stage of their life.
Yeah, that's the. I think I heard Stephen Fry talk about this on one of the Sam Harris podcast. He was comparing people who do mindfulness to cows chewing the field, which I was like, that's pretty funny. It's like,
yeah,
I mean, the other way was like, they're just like, just chewing away, and it's like, don't they ever get bored? Did they not have like, surely a lot of drive comes from these sort of altered states, like the fear of doing something. I think it's like, yes, but it's like you can have a little bit of anxiety and that sort of speeds you along a lot, but it's too much. And it's just like a little bit of stress will like help you out a lot, but too much stress will just generally cause you like actual damage and a little bit of depression. But then being able to detach yourself from that is probably enough.
It's more
to
about
get the ball
control,
rolling.
and they use this word equanimity of recognizing that, oh shit, I feel anxious. Well, I can't suppress the anxiety, but I can not let it dominate me, and I can mix in other emotions and be balanced.
Let me throw it to Marcus Aurelius over here. It's like. He's got a line which talks about perfection of character is this: to live each day as if it was your last, without frenzy, without apathy, and without pretense, accepting what you can do in the present and not letting emotional states control you as well.
Yeah, and it's easy to see where the modern idea of stoicism and apathy come from, because they say is it apatheia or something, which is where the word apathy comes from.
Yeah, I think in here, I don't know this translation, they just call it apathy.
Yeah.
So they'll just say that you are...
It's a tiny bit misleading, because obviously people think of Stoics in a modern context as just people that are boring, or people that are from George Lucas's prequel trilogy.
People that are just like stern-faced.
Yeah.
Emotionally unresponsive and angry all the time.
Yeah. And the idea of apathy is being not caring, but it's not. Yeah, it's more about controlling passions, and because they talk about passions as negative vices and emotions and anxieties is probably a better translation of passions.
Yeah, I think in this one they call it vices. Like, we all have drives to do things that we know aren't good for us, and it's like there's a difference between like the passion for someone that you love and the passion for you just like eating like 19 cakes.
Well, it's interesting you bring up love, because the Stoic idea of love in the Greek context is basically just Platonic. It's that mature idea that it's not the romantic, lustful stuff, and it's not the...
It's more logical, it's more thought through.
Yeah, which I get that, but then at the same time, they, or at least certain Stoics, take it to the extreme and say things like, well, if your loved one dies, you should be content and happy in that situation. Because it's out of your control.
Yeah, it's nothing that you can control.
That's where it starts to lose me, because I'm like, well, no, because I think there is a value in sometimes losing control.
Yeah, but I think there is a little bit, but also probably not in losing control. I think this is idea of...
To be generally in control would be good.
I think that's the thing. It's like, it's not about being like a massive control freak, because then that just causes, like, people who are very like conscientious about controlling their life just have massive stress and always feel out of control. But it's more like this. It's same with Buddhism, which is why I was like laughing when you talked about that at the start. It's this feeling of being able to let go, and just being able to go like, so in the situation where a loved one dies, they would have already led a life that is so full and rich that by that point it's not a mourning for them to pass. And it's like one of these things where hopefully they should have led such a good life up to that point that they go, okay, well, there's nothing, like Jim, and they lived each day to the full, there's nothing that they're going to regret.
Yeah, there's nothing they didn't say.
And also that you cannot affect that. So let's say if someone has like bone cancer or something, and it's like, that's a really horrible thing, and it's like, you're not going to be happy. And Stoicism's not like a red pill that just makes you emotionally flatline, but it's this idea that you can't control that, so you need to try and find the good that's in that situation.
Yeah, and it's I think it's a little bit of a caricature to say for a Stoic, if someone dies next to them, they're not going to be upset. Yeah, so yeah. It's more the idea of, okay, so
how can you get through that?
It's the process of getting through that as well, and it's a practice. It's not something that just comes instantly. That's
what I think is awesome about Stoicism, is like, it generally is so practical. And I think when I talked to you about this originally, I was like, reading it again, it's like almost like a self-help book from like 3,000 years ago. It generally I can imagine Tony Robbins just like flicking through this and being like, oh yeah, I'm gonna change that and put the word punch in there and make it cool.
Yeah.
And it's like in especially some Seneca, there's I was listening to Tim Ferriss' podcast and he was talking about, who's another sort of like modern Stoic fanboy, and he talks about how there's a couple of days of a month you should practice the worst case scenario. So not like just think through it and not go, okay, if all my family died, what will I do? But actually, practice it. So Seneca would like spend 3-4 days just like wearing like the worst clothes he could, eating no food, eating beans or like eating rice or whatever. Tim Ferriss was also talking about this, where he would just go on like 5-6 day fasts, decide to not spend any money.
I heard he used to go on walks in clothes that
Seneca.
Yeah, Seneca. Yeah. He used to wear he used to dress down and walk in fields when he had people waiting for him, and bodyguards and stuff, and carriages. And he would go, no, fuck that. I heard he did that.
Keep it attached to.
Yeah, to give him a grounding in reality.
Yeah, and he also talks really badly about some Roman like high up senators where they accuse them of being so decadent that they don't know whether they're riding on their palanquin on the cushions, and they have to ask, am I sat down when they get seated? Like, am I seated? They would go, imagine being so fucking detached that you can't tell if you're seated. How does a man like that know he's alive?
Yeah. Okay.
And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, because
and research by living that worst case scenario, you then remove so much fear, because you've already had the experience of what if I don't have any money? What if I have to wear certain clothes? What if I can only eat rice and beans? What if I have to walk from here to the Aventine?
Yeah,
you can do that.
It's not as ascetic as like the Cynics. But it's somewhere between the extreme version of hedonism and the sort of people wandering around in sandals and fasting for days and days and days.
Yeah, which I think is a bit intense, because it's at that point that's more like Buddhist, like you've given up on life. And the thing I love about Stoicism is just about getting shit done. It's like so much about it. It's just like, okay, you've got things to do. What are you going to do? Find out what you need to do. Get that done.
Getting shit done. Can we use philosophy in that sense? Can we just go back and like this is kind of the problem I had in the mindfulness
with it as a tool for executives.
Is it right to just go back into philosophy or religion and just go, well, I want to get shit done, I'm going to use that idea?
Yeah, and this is the whole thing with mindfulness. Is like, I don't think of it that way. I think this is like, I read this and was like, oh, this is cool. And then as my life's progressed, I went back to it and was like, oh shit, either that planted a seed that has become the way I think, or this is now just like so in line with the way I think.
Yeah.
I think that's like a bias anyways. People go towards the philosophy that is basically like them anyway. So they just go, I'm like this.
People don't choose philosophies.
Like
the
philosophy chooses them.
Yeah, I think that's this common misconception with philosophy. I mean, people are that, and then philosophers write about the kinds of people and ideas that people already have. It's very rare that people jump around to different philosophies.
Well, yeah, exactly, and it's like unless you're like unless you're really fickle and you're like, oh, I'm a Stoicist today. Oh, I'm a fucking Lutheran.
Yeah.
I believe in the world of J.R.R. Tolkien.
But there's two ideas with this whole self-help thing. So the one thing is there's a wider context that I think shouldn't be ignored, because you've got to think of this. Do you know anything about like the metaphysics?
No, girls, metaphysics.
Because it's
trigger word.
Yeah, there are certain ideas about the world they had which informed why they had this ethical view.
I was literally about to read this bit about because I know he talks about like natural and like being like operating as a natural being, and it's
this is like a book club. We should do this more often. You in that chair reading
honestly,
to me.
It feels fucking good. I feel like I should read it. We'll do it next week. I'll do Matilda. It says like at break of day when you're relaxing to get up, have this thought ready in mind: I'm getting up for a man's work. Do I still then resent it if I go out to do what I was born for, the purpose of which I was brought into the world? Or was I created to wrap myself in blankets and keep warm? And I'm just like, it's that idea of like man being just like an animal. And he talks a little bit later on about like, when you see, those of you who love nature, when you see a spider doing a spider's work, when you see a bird doing a bird's work, you're not like, oh, that's weird. Why isn't it just relaxing?
Yeah.
It's like we all have, I think they do go a little bit on the natural side. Like we all have like purpose, we all have a thing.
Yeah, so this is a naturalistic secular philosophy.
Yeah, which is cool.
One of the first to exist, really, relatively speaking. But Yeah, so wrapped up in this idea also is the idea that things should be a challenge. Nothing should be easy. But then you also talk of it as being like self-help. So, I just wonder, is it hard, is it easy? Like,
I think the cool thing about it is like, it's about self-imposed challenge. And it's like, I'm not saying I'm like super Mr. Stoic, but it's like a lot, I'd say like 80% is like basically things that I do. And I think also when you read any sort of, like I read, what was it, like seven rules for highly effective people, and it's just stoicism. It's just like, stop wasting time, do the things you know you need to do, form habits that are good for you. And it's like, that's exactly the sort of things that are brought up in stoicism.
yeah,
And it's because it's from Marcus Aurelius, who was the emperor of Rome at the time, looking back and going, what do I do that helps me out? And it's like, there's things that he literally talks about, like practices, like at the end of the day, reflect on your day. Talk about the good things you did, talk about the bad things you did. And
So,
if you do that, then you start to, you become like a self-training dog. You go like, oh, well, I did that, that's good. And then your brain goes, oh, I thought that was good, cool.
yeah.
You're not just glossing over it, you're actually reinforcing the things that make up your character.
Yeah, I worry if it's a little bit too doctrinal. It's a bit too like, okay, so here's what you have to do that.
Yeah.
It's a bit too fixed.
Yeah, I think that there are some things which are definitely like that.
Yeah, because it's really a philosophy in the sense of here's my philosophy. It's not so
here's
much
the things that I do.
Yeah, it's not so much an attitude.
I think it's more of an attitude. I think the things that Marcus Aurelius, because he never meant this for wider publication. This is just like his journals, and like Seneca is a lot less like, here are things to do, because he's giving out, like, he was meant for a wider audience, so he's a lot less sort of rule based. But I think Marcus Aurelius, he writes all these things down in order to like remind himself to do them.
Yeah.
So it's like, reflect on the day, like exercise, do things like this.
It does strike a good balance between being prescriptive and then actually arguing against prescription, because it's also morally quite relativistic.
Yeah.
It doesn't say, oh, these are the right things to do or whatever. It basically just says, no, the process is what matters, which is why it's a branch of virtue ethics. It says, culminating and cultivating character is what's important, not, this action is objectively wrong.
It says some things are objectively wrong, like, don't lie.
Yeah.
It says, like, just don't lie, and then also, like, obey your nature. And it's like, that's sort of, as far as it goes, is clamping down on, like, absolute rules.
Yeah, well, then it says about our nature is social, and that's kind of a problem, potentially, because I think there are certain contexts in which you need to be antisocial. I think there's, it's very difficult to imagine a revolutionary who's a Stoic, somebody who's so passionate and irritated about a state of affairs that they take up arms.
Yeah.
And I think that's a problem for Stoicism, because until everyone adopts Stoicism, you do need people being overly critical, overly passionate.
I read through some bits and I was just like, oh, as much as I love him, he's starting to sound like a straight up communist at this point. It was like things like, think about yourself in league with everyone else around you. Without them, there is, you are no one. Without you are no one.
Well, that's the thing. It's very much accept your place in things and don't and learn to love it. It's a bit like those Warhammer propaganda.
Yeah. Like, blessed the mind too small for doubt.
Yeah.
I think we've said this every single podcast. This is like an underpinning theme is like Warhammer 40,000 philosophy, which we need to do a podcast on because it's so funny. But
Instead of talking about Tao.
Yeah, just
space communist.
It's literally just what Tao are. Because they're just brainwashed like communists.
Yeah, there's this idea that it's very egalitarian, Stoicism. It's very, it speaks out against the keeping of slaves and women as well as being inferior. Early communist, proto-communist.
Maybe
in good and bad senses. But I think it needs that element of digestibility. I think it has a nice balance between being doctrinal and being just this loose attitude. Because I think, so that makes it easy to pick up, and also it's not literally just telling you what to do.
Yeah, it's not saying, like, it's not Ten Commandments territory, it's not saying thou shalt not, shalt not. And what I like here is, like, the proper way to behave is this, and it sets up this idea of, like an ideal. You create this ideal version of you that would not do these things, and you're always falling below that. You're never the ideal version of you that you put in your head, but you have that. It's this idea, I think Marcus Aurelius talks about, like, what would Zenu do? and he had this like projection of Zeno in his head, going, "Okay, he's awesome, stoic dude.
Yeah.
He's going to handle this perfectly. I'm not going to handle it perfectly, but I'm going to try my best to be like that, or take the teachings that he did." And it's like,
so it's setting a high bar, but also
setting a high bar,
accepting that you're
going to fail,
imperfect. Yeah,
accepting the imperfect, setting a high bar, but not like Catholicism where you've got to be like, I'm sorry that I didn't reach up to.
Well, this is the thing.
It's just like, okay, look, well done.
Yeah, Augustinians took this as like, oh, this sounds very Catholic. Like we're gonna milk this, and the Neoplatonists and the Neo-Stoics, they loved this shit. They lapped it up, and they took it in completely the wrong way.
Yeah, but I think it's how you want to read it, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, do you think that this could be good to? Do you think we could sort of market this? Like, sort of, not us two, well, we could.
Let's do it now.
But like, do you think it could be marketed and actually made into a philosophy that people just walking down the street would follow and say, "Oh yeah, I'm Stoic."
I think already
in a modern context.
I think already like different sports people already use this, and it's like in the wonderful world of podcasts, there's already people like Tim Ferriss, who literally have done whole podcasts on Stoicism and go, "This is my grounding for life." He talks about a guy called Jersey, who says, hard decisions, easy life, easy decisions, hard life. Right. But it's that idea of like doing the hard thing is better. And we've got like people like David Goggins, who's an ultramarathon runner, and these guys who probably haven't read Stoicism, but they've got like this overbearing Stoic idea, and it's like also in podcasts, which I've also gravitated towards because I live in an echo chamber, and it's like people like Jocko Willink who will say basically the same things throughout history, and it's just about overcoming your own personal weakness.
Yeah, so like you said, people don't choose philosophies. People already have a philosophy.
You wander into it.
So that I think Stoicism would speak to a lot of people then in that case, because it's this idea of, because we said that happiness isn't the true goal of everything, but I think most people would agree with that if you ask them certain thought experiments. Like, okay, so if you were just hooked up on some drug, just on a
like an MD spiral that would keep you constantly at the happiest you've ever been.
Yeah, right, straight into your pleasure cortex, whatever the fuck it's called. I'm not a scientist, but like...
you haven't been forward at pleasure cortex.
Yeah. But if you could do that, nobody would do it. But then I think it's a little bit too simplistic to say, oh, therefore struggle is good. Because it's like, well, you want to find that balance.
There's a dichotomy, because there is like this idea that you could go way too far, and you can go struggle equals meaning, and then you could then, maybe a bit like the cynics, just wander around eating like 16 calories of rice, and like fasting and just doing insane things. I think there's a good point where you can push it to find out where your limits are, and then there's actually a point where it's just like self-torture.
Yeah. But it's not objecting to happiness.
It should be your main goal.
Yeah, meaning and fulfillment is more important.
This is why I think it's cool. One of the things good old Dr. Jordan Peterson talks about, and he's got a massive following now as well, talking about happiness not being your main goal and about setting targets and stuff. And
I was reminded a little bit of that stuff, some of the stuff you talked about before.
It's kind of like, I think it's because it's like some ideas are just going to come back round, and you're going to find some people who are just constantly rehashing the same ideas, aren't they?
Yeah, well, Jordan Peterson does a lot of that.
Well, yeah, because my beef with Jordan Peterson is like people are like, oh, he's the world's best philosopher. It's like, no, he's an amazing researcher and a really smart, awesome dude. But it's like literally everything he's doing is just going, Dostoevsky thinks this, Jung thinks this, and it's what's amazing about him is just he exposes you to other people.
Yeah, he just throws up psychologists and...
Yeah, exactly. And he's like a facilitator. He's not saying, I've cracked it. The only thing he says he really doesn't like is like ideology. And that's his big thing. He's like, I don't like that. But then he's not saying, I've got the answers or I've got a philosophy.
Yeah, most of the stuff he seems to throw up, I find myself going, yeah, it's sensible. That's a good crack. But then
Dostoevsky's kind of stoic. He's got that amazing thing he talks about. The main goal in your life is to be worthy of your suffering.
Yeah,
well, that's awesome. The fact that you should just be able to meet the things that come with you with a good idea.
Yeah, I think so. Basically, we're just talking about meaning and control, and I think most people like those two ideas.
Yeah, of course. That's why I won a massive election on Take Back Control. I I'm a teacher. I was reading a thing about formative assessment, and it said, we're going to take, I shit you not, 2014, we're helping you take back control of assessment in the classroom. You look at banks, take back control of your finances.
Of your data. Take control
of your diet.
Yeah,
and it's like this idea of just soothing. I think
you hit on the can of worms now. I think this is the result of most of the world's problems. It's just this lack of control or lack of meaning.
Or lack of perceived control.
Yeah.
And I think this leads into like, this is why this is possibly a cool antidote for the whole God is dead, everyone freaking out. So I think if everyone read a little bit of Stoicism...
Yeah, so my lecturer said the other day that his class of 34 people, there are only like 8 of them left now because of mental illnesses and all kinds of things. And he's like, this is the collapse of Western civilization. There's just...
No, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, well, mental illness is on the rise.
Oh,
lots of people are just...
I agree with that. I don't think it's a collapse of because people have been saying that for like forever.
Yeah. No, it's hyperbole. But I think there's something in that. I think there's people are like more and more experiencing a lack of control, a lack of meaning. So you think Stoicism would sort of counter that? Yeah,
I think it's a really good practical application. I'm not saying it's not gonna cure if you've got mental illness.
Yeah,
but I think it's a very grounded way of seeing the world, and also just a way of being able to tolerate things that aren't great, and just being able to sort of detach a little bit and go, hey, look, I've just got to do this.
So it's a coping mechanism, but also a little bit more than that. It's because I think the important thing is it has this existential dimension of almost answering that question of why we're here as well, which it does in the Greek context, but I think that's kind of a little bit lost now in these modern applications of virtue ethics.
Well, I think one of the things it's really good at is like helping you find perspective and thinking about how you are just a small part in this is why sometimes it sounds a little bit common, that you're just a small part in a massive thing. Marcus Aurelius talks about people who have died, like emperors who have died, and it's like I think he compares them to leaves. And he goes, okay, well, they're now. They're all dead. You're going to die. Everyone's going to die. And it's not about that. And you're never going to find fame that's going to last forever. Yeah. And it's this idea of just dealing with the life that you have at this time. And maybe we all do think a little bit too much about existential problems. I think you were talking earlier on about like these big questions like metaethics.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, do you need to think about that all the time?
Yeah.
It's good that there are people who do, but it's also like I think if you fixate on it, it's not.
Yeah, sure. I think it's useful at some point in your life to go, oh shit.
Yes.
What is good? Because I'm using this term all the time, and I don't think it would necessarily change. Like we said, people don't choose philosophies. I don't think it would change anything, but I do think it would give you a sense of perspective. Because at some point in your life, it's going to get challenged. You know, and I think it is good to think about good and bad in those senses. To go, okay, shit, what do I believe and why do I believe it? But yeah, you can't walk around going, oh fuck, having an existential crisis all the time.
Yeah, because that is the path to mental.
Yeah, but like I said, anxiety can be good. In small doses, because it can
be useful.
I've had anxiety attacks. Going, oh shit! Why do I believe anything? Hang on, let me sit in a room for a day, come back out and go right. Okay, now I've worked it out. It's like Descartes' meditations when he has his Cartesian doubt. His big, why does anything exist at all? Do I exist? And then he comes out and goes, there you go, solved it. Spoilers, he didn't.
Spoilers, we can't measure it. Yeah. And it's hard to prove whether he did or didn't.
Yeah, but
I reckon he did. I reckon he's...
Well, the philosophical community is basically like, oh shit, he's thrown up a question here that nobody can really answer. But I don't think you need to answer that question in the way that he wants it answered. This absolute, this is why things exist. But I think in terms of functionality and in terms of how you live your life, you can sit in a room and go, okay, so I've got enough answers for now to be going on with. Now I can get back to working in retail.
Yeah, doing maybe something that I don't want to do for the moment, but as long as that's not your entire purpose, because your purpose is not to do that thing. Your purpose is to do something beyond that, but that might be something that you're doing at that time.
Yeah,
and just being able to go, hey, look, I'm just going to endure this, and also I'm not going to let this be me in my head. I'm not gonna let that be my entirety.
It invokes this idea of dignity, I think, as well. There was actually, I don't know if it was Seneca or someone earlier, one of the Greeks, said something about, it was Plutarch, he said, if life isn't worth living, by which he means there's no dignity in your life, it would be permissible then to commit suicide. And that kind of reminds me of assisted dying, which is something I care a lot about.
Seneca's got a quote, really good thing here, which is, imagine now you were dead, or had not lived before this moment. Now the rest of your life is a bonus. Live it as nature directs. And it's the idea of thinking about...
So it's a difficult thing to have that perspective.
Making yourself small. Making yourself go like, okay, just imagine that you were dead, or this is the day you die. It's like, when people have near-death experiences.
Yeah.
And then they go, oh, fuck, I'm going to go skydiving, I'm going to play the flute, I'm going to get my PhD, I'm going to do whatever. I think if you sort of take that big, long, drawn-out view, that third-person view.
I'm still a little bit sceptical because, most people who go through near-death experiences and then have that euphoria afterwards usually give up on it after because a short while.
Because they're not fucking...
they're not doing this,
They're not doing this, there's no self-discipline behind it. There's just... There's the original... oh fuck, I should do something, I'm tiny, my life's, I could do so much. And then they go, but I'd rather, sit on my phone for 15 hours or whatever.
Yeah, that's the problem. And I think to combat that and to really be useful in a modern context, I think it needs a little bit more than a couple of ancient Stoics.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it needs to be more of a movement. That's why I think it would be interesting to see if humanism can actually really
I think humanism
double down
could
if
it became Stoicism.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think that a lot of what has been floated around, because humanist ethics isn't really a thing yet, and this is what I worry about. If it takes on this, will humanism then become a doctrine? Because one of the...
Yeah, will it start saying you have to do this?
Yeah, one of the great things it has going for it is that it's very open, but that's also one of the things that makes a lot of people hesitant. They go, well, what really is it? But yeah, I think maybe if Stoicism could become part of humanism, if it could become central to that, which I think in a lot of its ideas it sounds like it is, the two of them can kind of use each other, and then it could actually be something that people can go, oh, okay, so this is my worldview now. This isn't just like a little practice I do on the weekends, and therefore it becomes more important to people.
And that's what I mean. Is this is not a Sunday church idea.
Yeah.
This is not. I'm going to go here and which I think maybe religion might have had a bit of negativity. It's like, okay, I've done some bad shit this week. I'm just going to confess it. It's more of a keeping it up. And going back to what we were talking about a minute ago about dealing with hardships, and when I said that I was going to find the quote about Marcus Aurelius shaming you into just going, hey, look, it's not that bad, is it? It says, do not let the panorama of your life oppress you. Do not dwell on the various troubles which may have occurred in the past or may occur in the future. Just ask yourself in each instant of the present, what is there in this work which I cannot endure or support? You will be ashamed to make any such confession. Then remind yourself that it is neither the future nor the past which weighs on you, but always the present. And the present burden reduces, if only you can isolate it and accuse your mind of weakness if it cannot hold against something thus stripped bare.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's just like, instead of just going like, oh, is it that bad?
Yeah, fucking...
Or are you making it worse in your brain?
Yeah,
is it? And it's like that whole Seneca thing, saying like, or like Hamlet in Shakespeare, how bad must the fear of death be that people would rather live under like being whipped all the time, or how bad, or I guess he's not really talking about, he's talking about the fear of the unknown, but it's like, it can't be that bad, because the other alternative that you always have on the other side is death, and it's like, that is there.
Yeah, no, it sounds very, very holistic and very... I'm not sure if it can answer every question or dilemma or be even useful for every person.
I think definitely not. I think like there's also some really big questions.
And I think there's some really big anxieties that I don't think reading some Stoicism is enough for. Like people with really bad mental illnesses, I think. I think that's a bit like...
You can't just tell them to read Seneca and then they'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's not going to cure it.
No, yeah. But yeah, I think for the average person, I think a little bit of Stoicism will go a long way.
And also it's like, quite a lot of people probably live quite a stoic life anyway.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking about, just the average person doesn't really like their job, going in, getting the bills paid. Let's create a character. We've got someone who's just like working at Mackie D's. They're like, this is kind of crap, but I'm going to get through this. I think if you take that with a pinch of stoicism. It sort of helps get you through as well, rather than like a pinch of like fucking Camus just going like, oh, you should just inject heroin, or like John Paul Sartre just being like, we're just a little piece of nature that's bound to be consumed by like an ever-growing void. And you're like, oh, cheers.
Yeah, so it's
Like absurdism. You don't really need absurdism to get you through the day.
So it's optimistic and functional. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just functional, and probably I'd like to learn more about its like weaknesses and stuff like that. And
Yeah, I think we covered a few and given some answers to them.
Yeah,
We've ignored a lot of the metaphysics that underpins some of these ideas, and the fact that it's part of an already established worldview of, because they basically believe in pantheism.
Yeah, because he's always talking about like I think he's using God almost like in the same way you might do, just as a model of.
So
like,
Plato believes in absolute truth, which
Yeah.
comes from this very strange idea of God that he has. But then, these guys, these Stoics, they're kind of secular, but then they also have this weird pantheistic animism.
The thing that I like is this is completely separate from their religious practice. So it's like So Marcus Aurelius will talk about gods. Seneca will talk about gods. I'm not sure Seneca really believed in God, but
No.
I'm not sure Marcus Aurelius probably believed in the gods, but he's using it as a useful allegory of someone who's so much higher than you, can see through everything you do, and you should always act as if they're watching.
Yeah.
And not out
to
of
lack
fear.
of functional truth. Yeah.
And not
like a
out of
little-
fear, but just like, hey, there's a judge
useful.
up there.
Mm.
Someone is looking at me.
Yeah, so it's like this useful idea that, I think there's possibly another context-dependent idea, this idea of, well, how much can ideas from ancient Greece speak to people now?
Yeah.
Like this fear of being too anachronistic, I think, is the problem. Like, can we literally just take ideas from ancient Greece and go, oh yeah, I'm that now?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So that's why I kind of want to see it pass through some philosophers first, which it is being at the moment. In
Like
philosophy,
a
Stoicism.
modern take on Stoicism.
Because there are people that, like Elizabeth Anscombe and stuff, and Philippa Foot, that worked virtue ethics through the grinder of history, and then turned it out into something that's appropriate for a modern context. It'd be interesting to see that done in a way that's a bit less academic, so that people can get on board with it.
Yeah.
But because, like I said, I think there are a few ideas within this old idea of Stoicism that are dependent in a lot of ways on the ideas that were being floated around then. And it's a little bit like...
Yeah, because it's not made in a vacuum. You can't just copy and paste the way that... I think some things you can.
Yes,
Some things you definitely can, but I think you can't just take the whole thing and go... Like you were saying, I am Roman Stoic. It's like, well, you don't live in that society. You don't live in that time. You're not part of like a feudal system.
Yeah.
Because like as you were saying, like part of it's just, hey look, accept your lot in life. You're in a caste system.
Yeah.
You're just gonna, hey look mate, you're just gonna make that corn. It's alright for me, I'm the emperor. And it's like, it's alright for him to be like, hey, know your place.
Yeah, but I think a more contextually sensitive idea of this would be great. And I think we've started to get that in a lot of like these workshops and I like kind of lectures and stuff. Yeah, I'd like to see it become more mainstream, definitely.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see it evolve. And also, I don't know if it's like a politically right or politically left thing. I don't know if it's...
Well, that's the thing. So, yeah...
Where would it sit? Would it sit anywhere? Is it away from politics? Like,
yeah, and it's this thing of how would Stoicism...
How would it
help you solve political problems? How would it help you solve a trolley problem or this problem? Or so that's my other reservation with it. Is like, okay, so it's an attitude, but
it'd probably help you solve the trolley problem by just figuring out which one's less, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
that's what I imagine. If you run it for like if you imagine you've got like a Stoic filter, like a pair of sunglasses, like you just put on your Stoic vision, and then suddenly it's all filtered through there. It'd probably just become utilitarianism.
Yeah.
You probably just go like, hey, look, there's 5 on that rail. There's only my son on that one.
Yeah. But so it's very much about self-control, and it's okay. But besides saying that we're social creatures and saying that we should cultivate virtues to help other people and stuff, what does it really tell us about these communal problems and these problems to do with other people? It's very self-focused, which I think is fine. But I think, it's an existentialism rather than an ethics or a morality.
Yeah, because it's not like Christianity. You can't roll it out. I don't think, because it is so about you just taking ownership of you and just going, hey, look, I'm gonna deal with me, and then you've got to count on the person on the right of you dealing with you. And Marcus Aurelius talks about it. He says like, hey, you're going to meet people who are, you know, he basically says you're going to meet assholes, and you've just got to not let that affect you. But then it's like a really effective thing would be a way of helping those people not be assholes. But that's not what Stoicism is saying. It's saying, hey, look, the best way you can stop people being assholes is for you not to be one.
Yeah.
And Seneca's very removed. He's
kind of live by example kind of thing, yeah.
Kind of live by example, but Seneca's almost a little bit removed where he's saying, look at all those people that, like, he says, like, idle, like they're wasting their time on their own, like, in idle preoccupation.
Yeah.
Which I think is like kind of like a funny thing.
Yeah.
And he also talks about, which is kind of what we're doing now. I read this and literally laughed out loud. I was like, fuck. But it's talking about, like, people in Rome are doing what they've done in Greece for years, which is like sitting down talking about academic literary questions, and they're busy in their preoccupation of doing nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh shit, that's pretty good. It's like, like, you know, when you talk about Game of Thrones for like 4 hours and you're just busy in idle preoccupation of doing nothing. It's like, god damn it, Seneca's throwing some shade there across like 3,000 years or whatever.
Yeah, just literally fucking existing.
So the main thing that we've got, or we think about Stoicism now in the modern context, is that it's very, very Instagram friendly. So you can just whack up a photo of a clay face, of a sculpture of Seneca, put one of his quotes on there, and suddenly people think you're really deep and cool. So should we end it with this one? This is a good quote. I haven't talked about this before, which is from Seneca, which says, "Life is like a play. It's not the length, but the excellence of the acting that matters."
It's very good.
It's very deep, right?
It's very apt.
I'm going to put that on FriendTube later on.
Yeah.
And then
with a beach behind.
Just a picture of me just like sat out in the rain.
Hashtag.
It can't be stoic. It's a beach. You've got to be sat on a granite cliff.
Hashtag live, love, laugh.
Live, laugh, love. Live, laugh. Stoicism. No, it's like live, meaning don't laugh, non-reactive, internalize. The main cool thing about Stoicism is it's really Instagram friendly. So, oh shit, literally get a phone call.
Answer it in the podcast.
Hello. Hello, how you doing? Oh, awesome. Yeah. I think I just got the email through saying that it's all sorted out. So, yeah. So they got to send. So I think I just got an email from the very first.